The differences between these two cameras, from my experience, are primarily directed towards the ergonomics and the operation of the camera. The picture quality is practically the same. The black camera is the A5100 and the white camera is the A6000. I have made an overview of the specs to give you a clear indication of how similar these two cameras actually are, therefore should result in the same picture and video quality. There are some minor differences, but I am not 100% sure how they impact photo quality. I have fairly big hands, so I find the ergonomics of the bigger A6000 much more satisfying. The build quality feels more premium than the A5100. The A5100 is made out of plastic and weighs around 283 grams, including the battery, and the A6000 is made out of magnesium alloy and weighs around 344 grams, including the battery. The additional weight of 50 grams helps with the solid build and keeps it balanced in your hand, which also prevents instability and potential jerky movements, especially when there is no IBIS. Both use the same battery, the NPFW50. The A5100 on paper should last about 50% longer. The battery life on both these cameras will be subpar, so don't expect anything miraculous. The battery life should hold fine for a session of street photography or a family outing. The A6000 has some additional buttons that the A5100 does not have. For instance, a mode button with a PASM structure. And for people who do not know what the PASM structure is an abbreviation for, here it comes. The P is for program or auto mode. The camera will choose the best settings for the best photo. The only thing you have to do is click the shutter button. The A stands for aperture priority. You control the aperture and the camera will set the appropriate shutter speed to go along with it. The S stands for shutter speed priority. You control the shutter speed and the camera will choose the appropriate aperture to go along with it. And then you have the M mode, which stands for manual mode. You have full control over the aperture and shutter speed, which is the most preferred way of shooting. The red button is the Sony priority mode and the green button is in the intelligent mode. These are Sony's proprietary automatic modes, which is great if you're a beginner and just want to shoot and not think too much about the different settings. When you have it on M mode, manual shooting, you can change aperture with the horizontal scroll wheel and the shutter speed with the vertical scroll wheel for easy exposure changes, which is super handy and a standard way of operating a DSLR. With the A5100, it's not tedious but less intuitive. There's no mode button, so you have to press the middle button and change which mode you want to shoot in. And if you choose manual, you have to press the bottom button 1 or 2 times depending on whether you want to change the aperture or the shutter speed. It's not bad, I guess, but there are some additional steps that could have been avoided with more buttons. The A6000 has a screen that tilts 90 degrees for a low angle shot, 45 degrees for a high angle shot, but it cannot face forward. So if you want to do vlogging style shots where you are in the frame, you have to get an external monitor. The A5100 on the other hand can tilt 180 degrees facing forward, and therefore it would be a lot easier to use if you want to create content with yourself in the frame. I think this type of screen is definitely more multi-purpose. If I had to choose between these two cameras purely on screen functions, I think that the A5100 is more obvious for creative use. So we saw earlier that A6000 has a button change the different modes. How do you do that with the A5100 when you don't have that button? What they've done is they programmed the wheel in the software, so you have to press the middle button on the camera like this. You get a software wheel where the desired mode can be chosen, either by pressing the middle button again or the shutter button. If I press the menu button, you can get a sense of what you can expect. On the top, we have all the categories, which is divided into different pages, which holds all the different functions you can change. It's built horizontally and not vertically. The A6000 has an electronic viewfinder which is great for taking photos when it's bright outside or in a situation where the screen is too dim. The A5100 does not have that option, and I don't think it's possible to attach an external viewfinder to the camera either. So if you already know this is a deal breaker for you, then go with the A6000. Both cameras have an inbuilt flash that reaches a couple of meters. Lately, I've loved flash capabilities built into the camera. They're so handy to take some quick photos of people in the dark. The A6000 has a burst mode of 11 frames per second. The A5100 only has a burst mode of 7 frames per second. If you want to document sports, big crowds, fast-moving objects, or protest, the A6000 would be a more convenient camera to use in those scenarios. There is some minor shortcomings. There's no dedicated charger for the battery included in the box, so you have to charge the battery directly in the cameras like you do with your phone, which is fine, but when you turn on the camera, it goes directly into USB mode, and in the USB mode you cannot use the camera, and it also stops charging, probably because they want to prevent heating issues. Even though there is a physical button for the mode on the A6000, the software wheel pops off. After that, you have to click on the shutter button or the middle button to engage with that specific mode, which kind of defeats the purpose of having the button in the first place. They also zoom a little bit different. On the A5100, you can use a top slider button, which acts like a zoom controller, which I have to be honest with you, is quite a nice implementation. The A6000 does not have that nifty little slider button, so you have to manually zoom with the lens's dedicated zoom ring, which is something you obviously also can do with the A5100. I have not done a lot of video, because I'm using my Panasonic GH5 mainly. There's no IBIS, but I do believe they support lenses with OIS. Should you buy, upgrade, or buy another model? Honestly, anyone who are aspiring photographers who want to use bigger sensors than the phones, or somebody who wants to get into the Sony APS-C ecosystem, these are great entry points. I would recommend buying these secondhand. Try to find it in a good condition with a kit lens. The A5100 secondhand, you should be able to get it around $250 with a kit lens. And the A6000, you should be able to get around $300 and probably even under that with a kit lens again. So these are the 5 ways I would approach how to choose which camera to buy. I would choose the A6000 over the A5100. I like the better ergonomics of the A6000. If you have already bought the A5100, just keep it. The quality in picture and video and the functionality is the same. There's literally no difference other than the ergonomics. If you have bought the A5100 but you really want the A6000, I would just sell the A5100 and with whatever money I get from that, buy the A6000. If you have more coin to spare, maybe look at the A6300, which has 4K capabilities. Or I would look at something different altogether, like the GX80 or the GX9 from Panasonic, which is cameras with micro four thirds sensors. I just bought the GX9, which I'm very fond of, but that's a whole different video. The last thing I want to mention is lenses. They might have a bigger impact on the photo quality than you might think. It does not have to cost thousands of dollars to get a quality lens that will work with the A6000 or the A5100. I would definitely look at a company like Sigma, which produces great lenses at a price we can understand. The kit lens is actually decent, but if you ever feel like something is missing, try out another lens. See whether that boosts the excitement and artistry. I hope you're doing well out there.